Interesting. Yes. Got it. Understood.
Huh?
I want to buy some better...
Music to my ears. What did you have in mind?
What do we need?
Corporal? Need anything?
Tell me a bit about your time on the road. What was it like?
Is that a command, Corporal?
Please?
All right, but I'm afraid there isn't so much to tell. Have you ever been on the road by yourself?
No.
Well, then you're sleeping under the... Most of the time, your stomach and your purse are empty, and your feet are full of blisters. And, of course, there's the constant danger. Especially if you're traveling on your own.
Did you ever have a...
Some, yeah, but...
How did you meet?
Coincidence. When I called him, he gave me back my...
So, you started traveling together?
I wouldn't call him that. He was just young and careless. We ended up traveling for almost a year.
I see.
You mean... no.
What was his story?
Into the blue, same as me. He had quite an...
Huh.
Nothing dramatic. He liked it. Ben the Smith wanted him as an apprentice, so he stayed.
Huh. And how did you make a living?
That was the easiest part. I healed people.
With light magic?
Yes, and frankly put, whenever I treated someone, I gave him a magic...
And that worked?
Better than you'd think. People were fighting over...
Do you miss it?
Well, there was this one, my first tip, but I didn't, as if that feeling lasted until the sun came up. And then I fell asleep. When I woke up, it was gone.
And what do you make of it now?
Truth be told, I don't know. But it changed something. Even though I cannot say what it is.
Goodbye.
Corporal? Need anything?
Tell me a bit about your time.
Is that a command, Corporal?
Please?
All right, but I'm afraid there isn't so much to tell.
No.
Well, then you probably don't... Sleeping under the... Most of the time, your stomach and your purse are empty, and your feet are full of blisters. And, of course, there's the constant...
Did you ever have a...
Some...
How did you meet?
Coincidence. When I called, he gave me back my...
So, you started
I wouldn't call him that. He was just young and careless.
I see.
You mean... no, we were just friends. He was way too young for my liking, and I think I was too old for him. We were more like sister and brother.
What was his story? Where was he headed?
Into the blue, same as me. He had quite an interesting task, but I wouldn't feel comfortable sharing it with you, to be honest. He wouldn't want that.
Huh. So, how did you split up? What happened?
Nothing dramatic. We came by a village and decided to rest there for a while. The roads had become quite dangerous due to the mage wars, and we didn't want to go out unprepared. He liked it. Ben the Smith wanted him as an apprentice, so he stayed. I was surprised and a bit hurt at first, but then I realized it was probably for the better. I still think of him sometimes, though.
Huh. And how did you...
That was the easiest part. I healed people.
With light magic?
Yes and no. It was my magic that mended the wounds, but since mages are often met with suspicion, frankly put, whenever I treated someone, I gave him a magical potion to drink, which was just water mixed with some harmless herb to give it color. The rest was laying on hands to help the potion's effect, which was pure light magic and how I did the actual healing.
And that worked?
Better than you'd think. People were fighting over my panacea as if I was Ellen incarnate, while cursing the evil defilers who had caused this war. Ironic, isn't it?
Do you miss it sometimes? The vagabond life?
Well, we're still vagabonds somehow, aren't we? But I know what you mean. And yeah, I sometimes do. The wind on my skin, the vastness of the wildlands, and the fact that all you have to think about is the mile ahead of you. It's another world. There was this one night I'll never forget. I'd made a camp at a clearing, set up campfire, and I was leaning against a tree, slowly drifting toward sleep. Then, all of a sudden, it started to rain. Not just the usual drizzle, it was bucketing down, drowning everything, the earth, the noise, the plants around me. My first impulse was to jump up, to find shelter, get my things into the... But I didn't. Instead, I saw. I don't know how else to put it. As if all my life I had been chasing something without knowing it myself. And in that moment had found it. So I just watched. That feeling lasted until the sun came up. And then I fell asleep. When I woke up, it was gone.
That sounds beautiful.
And a bit dramatic. But yeah, it was beautiful. I've never felt something like that again.
And what do you make of it now?
Truth be told, I don't know. But it changed something. Even though I cannot say what it is.
Goodbye. Will do.
To this day, the Shaper's magical and technological prowess remains unrivaled. One thing is clear, none of their marvels would have been possible without an incredible amount of...
Now would you look at that?
Yeah, do you need something? I'm a tad busy.
What exactly is it that fascinates you about the Shaper?
Oh, Tahar, that's quite a topic. I don't mind sharing, but are you sure you want to go there?
I am. Tell me.
All right. Well, where do you see? The Shapers have always fascinated me. They're all over Io. These remnants of a once so glorious civilization. Yet for some reason, so many people are almost oblivious to it. On the one hand, of course, that's very sad. On the other hand, it also makes it a lot more exciting. It's like I'm a treasure hunter, only that everyone else fails to see the treasures around us. Tell me, Tahar, when seeing all of this, don't you sometimes feel like you're exploring a childhood dream? The kind of world the poets and the bards always spoke of?
The Shapers are dangerous. Just think of that Steel Guardian we fought to get in, or the Ghost Watchers. Not what I'd call a childhood dream.
Well, yeah, but it doesn't take away from the wonderment, does it? But this childish fascination was only the spark. The more I studied the Shapers, the more enthralled I became with their culture. Did you know that at the pinnacle of their existence, they ruled over all of Io? A global empire with no one to oppose them.
You seem to consider that a good thing.
Oh, good, bad, the world doesn't work like that. Of course, there are writings that hint at the fact that the Shaper Empire wasn't all rainbows and unicorns, but still it was stable. And it persisted for tens of thousands of years. Can you imagine? All this knowledge, all this art, all this wisdom. Nothing in the Io of today can match that. Nothing. It's like comparing a sea full of secrets with a puddle of muddy water.
How do you know all this?
Some of it from writings, some of it's just connecting the dots. I know how many scholars are out there at the universities giving their talks about the inscrutable empire, but it's not nearly as inscrutable as they say. Their problem is they're trying to understand the Shapers by reading books and dusty tablets. That's not how it works. You need to get out there, into the field. And even if it takes years of fruitless digging, you have another piece of the mosaic.
Very poetic.
Because it is.
My father always told me the Shaper Empire relied a lot on slaves.
What? No, that's rubbish. The Shapers had castes, yes, and it's probably the lower castes your father was referring to. But to call these slaves is like calling, say, a tanner who was born outside a royal family a slave, just because he'll never be a king. And even the very lowest caste, the Zalanyur, always had enough to eat, a roof over their heads, and could, without paying a single coin, get themselves healed by a cleric if they needed to. So if you think that's unjust, go ahead. Ask an Everlight beggar which era he'd rather live in. He's not a slave, yes, but in some ways he's worse off.
And how exactly did their empire come to be?
They had the liberty of being the first living civilization on our Io, at least as far as we know. That made it easier to maintain peace and stability. Until the end and the dragons.
And yet, they died out.
Yeah.
Most scholars think it was the dragons.
They do, but I doubt it. You saw what the Shapers were capable of. Even a race as powerful as the dragons couldn't have wiped them out. And you see the shape the city is in, Tahar. There's no traces of fire and destruction. But regardless of what it was, it doesn't change the fact that the way the current races of this world treat the Shapers is nothing short of pathetic. They were greater than we'll ever be. But instead of studying this greatness, we ignore them. And why? Just because it doesn't fit into our religion, our traditions, or whatever reason they can come up with. Because to many, admitting what a marvel the Shapers truly were would mean admitting that our culture is pale in comparison.
Is our world really that bad?
That depends on your expectations. We could do worse, certainly, but if this is as good as we can get, then I have nothing to feel but pity.
Maybe you're right. There's a lot we could learn from the Shapers.
There is. In any case, I suppose you found your answer, haven't you? This is what fascinates me about the Shapers. They're a reminder of what we could be, if only we wanted to.
I see. Well, thanks for the explanation, Iskrim. I appreciate it. Goodbye.
Tahar, may I help you with something?
Goodbye. Got it. Yes? What's next?
Of the few refugees who make it to Everlight, many are shocked to find that their troubles do not end there. Though its neutrality as a city-state left it largely unscathed during the Mage Wars, the city has its own mountain of problems to struggle with. The biggest ones being the ever-growing gap between the rich and the poor, an uncontrollable rise in crime, and the Purity of Light's aggressive crusade for new followers.
Corporal?
Yes?
Yes?
Huh?